Greetings, He fans! It's time for another trip to Eternia, and this series of videos for the new Retro Play Masters of the Universe toys is brought to you by Mattel. Mattel themselves. Someone from Mattel reached out to me on Instagram, said they were digging what I was doing with the Masters of the Universe videos on this channel, and they offered to send me something, and I didn't know what it was, and I wasn't obligated to do any videos on them. But it is an incredible honor for me to be in contact with Mattel and receive this wonderful lot of items to showcase here and share with you. A lot of people were asking if I was going to pick up the Retro Play line, and I said I'm admiring them from afar. I think they look wonderful. I love the idea of doing figures in the original scale, but with more articulation. But a major reason I was going to pass on them was due to budget, and because I already have the original He-Man, as well as this guy, the Classics He-Man, as well as this guy, the 2000X He-Man, and I'll even include this guy right here, the Super 7 Retro Style He-Man. So I've just gotten to a point where my collection has grown so much that I have to be a little bit more selective with what I spend my money on, because, as I always say, bills come first. So yeah, I thought these all looked fantastic. Saw some pictures on some people's social media. Chris Miwa in particular posted some great pictures of these on his Instagram, and I was admiring them from afar and enjoying them through other people. Empathy, not jealousy. But now that I actually have them, I'm going to do an individual review on each of these figures, on the Battle Cat, which I can't wait to do this one. It looks fantastic, especially the box art looks tremendous. And they also sent this Sky Sled with Prince Adam. Now, the box that my items came in, I guess one of the techniques when bringing mail into Canada from the US is to give it a double axe handle or a Macho Man elbow off the top rope. So there was a little bit of crunchage on the box, unfortunately, coming into the country. But it survived intact enough that I'll be able to showcase the beautiful toy artistry on it. And none of the items were damaged, luckily. So the actual items will be in fantastic condition. We'll take a look at Skeletor next time out, but this time we're going to be taking a look at the Retro Play He-Man. Let's start off with the packaging. I haven't seen them show up on Big Bad Toy Store just yet, but I do want to give a shout out to Big Bad Toy Store. They've got tons of Masters of the Universe items on there. Still a lot of the Super 7 Retro style, as well as the little reaction figures and other style of Masters of the Universe classic characters. The packaging for the new Retro Play single-carded figures is very, very similar to the original He-Man figures, as well as the new Super 7, or newish, I should say. It's new to me if it's 15 years or younger, but very similar to the vintage figures. I've got a commemorative He-Man right here to compare. The big thing that I notice is the Mattel logo right here is white. It's still the old logo, but it's in white instead of the classic red. You can see on the inside there with the white box background. The red looks just a little faded compared to more saturated red right here. And I do have one of the Super 7 retro style figures. So again, just a tiny bit. I don't even think that's really that big a deal, but I noticed it. Got the big burst right here, modern posing Retro Play, which is similar to some of the bursts they used to put on the old cards, the As Seen on TV style of card, or just a simple bubble that says new. And once I open the figure, I'll be able to compare the size a little bit better, but it is the exact or very similar style bubble with the angles contouring around the figure that they used on the original ones. And I just love little touches like this. You just know that fans are working there. Got to have that little divot in there, just like the original one had. That's so cool. You can see his accessories bagged in behind him. That takes me back to the original with the accessories in the bag behind. And then there is, I think I've learned my lesson from the Super 7 one. I thought it was a comic in behind him, but actually that looks like it opens up. So I don't know if it's a comic or just a pamphlet that opens up, but always cool to have something in behind there. There is some artwork there, which we will take a closer look at. And plus his little description, He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. And what's on the back is also pretty important for a lot of collectors, featuring some transformation artwork of, looks like he's transforming Cringer in a battle cat there, maybe. With the mystical power sword, the mighty He-Man protects Eternia from forces of evil. It does include a comic book. And we've got artwork very similar to the original figures, figure backs. We're showcasing some of the other available figures in the Retro Play line. Power sword fits into hand. That's a feature. I love when that used to be a feature. You can place the weapon in the hand. We take that for granted these days, but that used to be a cool feature. Not all toys in the early days could hold accessories. And then twist into powerful battle positions. So I wonder if that means the battle twist. Maybe not, but they're just showcasing some of the new posability that these figures have. They're very similar to the original ones, but now with more articulation, so I'm excited about that. Now, the age-old question when it comes to figures that are on card is to open or not to open. And that question will never be answered because for me personally, and I think for a lot of people too, you don't know until you hold it in your hand. I'm always telling people, hold it in your hand and see how you feel once you get it, because pictures often don't do an item justice. And this thing, like with quite a few items this year that I saw pictures of and said, that's cool, but I don't think I have a spot in my collection or in my budget for it. This does look cooler than the pictures led me to believe. But holding this in my hand, looking at it, this is a definite open. It's not even close. It's not a struggle for me to decide, should I open it or not? This definitely looks like it's going to be a lot more fun to take it out of the package and take advantage of all of the posability there. Strike him into cool poses that the original He-Man couldn't do. Whereas this guy, I do have one opened, but if I could only have one, I think I would have kept him on card, because what you see is what you get. There's not much you can do once he's opened, and he is a really nice display piece on the card. Whereas it just feels like you're leaving a lot on the table by keeping this guy in here. So is this guy maybe a little bit of unfinished business? Being able to do all those poses with your original He-Man that you were never able to do? And let's find out and open him up. All right. Looks like he is secured by one of these bands. If you're able to not cut these and keep it, with my Masters of the Universe Classics bow figure from the She-Ra line, his bow for his bow and arrow didn't come with like a line with a string for it. And I find if you can use one of these, they work fantastic for that or any other type of character who has like a bow and arrow type of thing. So if you can avoid cutting it, it's actually a cool little piece that you can use with other customs. And he is secured by the feet as well. And we'll pull the accessories, which are taped. Nice and secure there in the back. I just like to cut it this way in case I want to put the figure back in. Little piece of tape right there, and you can look mint on card again. These can be so tricky to, let me just stand them up here. There we go. I like them already, just that quick little futzing with him. How are his ankles? His ankles are much better than classics, thankfully. I can tell you that right off the bat. But these comics can be a real chore or artwork to pull out. That one came out real nice and easy. The card art, unless you tear it right off, I guess, but if you're using this technique, it can be tough to get it out, but this looks like it's not too bad. Looks like it was kind of stuck in the bottom corner there a little bit. And here is a look at the comic book, Beast Barrage. Nice glossy paper, glossier than the original mini comics from the early 80s. But these are so important for, especially for, you know, if there's not an accompanying TV show or comic book, to just have a little bit of story and character included. And I was looking for some credits here, art credits or writing credits. There's nothing in here. All that's important is the story. The play is the thing. So I'm sure online we can look up and find out who did these, but some more artwork on the back of the available characters. Cool little comic for you to read. And let's take a look at the accessories first. I love that it's the original accessories, that they're not trying to get cute and including several extra items. The G.I. Joe new retro line comes to mind. It's cool that the figures are including so many accessories, but it's also not true to the original, and sometimes less is more. So we're getting an original looking power sword, right down to this little thing right here to secure on the arm. And this is a nice material. This isn't overly floppy like some of the Masters of the Universe figures have used. This feels like if you bend it too much, you're gonna give it one of those white stress marks. So nice material. That's interesting. The sword has like a metallic sheen to it. Almost looks painted, but it's a metallic type of plastic, while the axe is like a dull matte, almost bluish plastic, and the shield looks to be made of the same material as the axe as well. Gotta have that orange coloration on there. Love it. And it's painted on, so probably less likely to get damaged or scratched up like the original, unlike the original paper insert. And looks like really nice secure attachment to the arm. Clips onto the wrists like the original one, but also has a spot for the hand to hold. But onto the figure, and feels like a really nice material. I can tell you right off the bat. Love these big bowling ball shoulders. Certainly the most powerful man in the universe needs to look big and muscular. Little loop on the back. This is a nice material too that his harness is on. This is a different connection setup than the original one was. I like it. It's just one connection point, and don't even have to pop his head off. That just comes right off. Probably, let's see, maybe a little tricky fitting this over his legs, but I mean, you can go barbarian look from the early mini comics if you want. But we'll just reattach this back on here and secure that. And that's a really easy connection. That can be really frustrating sometimes trying to get this floppy material to connect to itself, but no problems there. I like the extra detailing on the iron cross on his chest too, and I like that it's an iron cross. There's some goofy things going on in the world today, and certain classic things are being changed because people have allowed them to have a different meaning over the years. So I know they changed the Iron Cross on the 2000X He-Man figures, but I'm glad to see it back. It's He-Man. People who look at it when it's in this context, they don't think of other things. At least, well, I speak for myself. I don't think of other things. I think of He-Man. So glad to see that, and the red paint, similar to the original He-Man. Let's take a look at the arms. This is the big thing. It's no more just straight up and down. He's got, fantastic articulation. The elbow, he's got some, which is so much better than the original one, which had none. And his muscles are getting in his own way here, but check this out. Oh man, wrist articulation. He can give you a lesson of the day. Wow, he can even kind of hitch his belt, which that Spirit of Obi-Wan, I wish he could have done this, but he can give you a lesson of the day, tell you to stay positive and optimistic and do your best, be your best self, and then wave goodbye. Bye for now. Until then. So that's really cool. And then the sword hand. It's not going the way I thought it was. I thought it would go up and down, because that's a huge piece of unfinished business for He-Man fans. That original figure could never do that. Couldn't hold the sword aloft and say, by the power of Grayskull, let's pop the sword in the hand right now. And no problem whatsoever. And just forgot to mention, it looks like Skeletor's sword half can be connected to this as well to form a full power sword. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And the loop goes around to secure it so it won't fall out. But even without that wrist tilt going the way that the Filmation Classics He-Man figure, the Club Grayskull He-Man figure, or Ultimate He-Man, I guess had that too. Even without that wrist tilt, it's still really good. This is an odd shoulder joint. It's on an angle. I'm trying to use it like almost every other figure I've ever handled in my life, but it's different. You see how isn't that wild? The shoulder, when you move it up and down, the shoulder doesn't go up and down like a regular figure. And I'll just bring in the original one to show you that, an up and down joint, the arm just goes up and down, but this particular one feels like it's going on an angle because of the cut. But you can get it up there pretty good. He's got great head articulation. The head can, look up. Awesome. Quite a bit of range there. It's so cool to be able not just to hold the sword up like this, but for him to look up at it like that. That classic Filmation opening is so cool. Love that. Great head articulation. I'm curious, parents, if you've got some little ones watching, you might want them to turn away for a moment. This could be traumatic. Head pops off. That looks very similar to a Classics head connector. So I'm curious. And I'm going to take one of the Classics figures, take the head off. And I know the skin tone isn't a proper match here, but I'm very curious to see if it's the same size, because this figure looks a little bit smaller than the Classics figures, but the heads might be the same size. The head might not be the cup of tea of some vintage He-Man fans. Maybe it's because it's got the right hairstyle, and I know the original He-Man wasn't a warm and friendly looking fellow, but for something that looks more cartoon accurate, I would have liked to see like a smiling face on it. So I know there's a Filmation head, which I'm going to try to pop on here, but I'm going to try the Classics head first, and it might not. I don't think it'll fit, because this looks like a much bigger connection point there. So if you were curious, I can probably force that, but I've learned my lesson. I've done that, trying to use Star Wars figures on modern Joes and vice versa, and I've stretched that connection point out. So I'm not going to do that today, because I don't want to mess up the head of this Classics figure, but I'm sure there are people who are braver and more brazen than me who can try that out and see how that looks. And I do like the way this hand is opened right here. It really adds to the transformation effect of putting the sword up and just having that hand stick out like that. That's cool. The shield clips onto the forearm right above the bracelet. Yep, it looks like that's an easy connection point. And since the hand is open, he's not really gripping this handle. His fingers are just feeding through it, just like the original one, I guess. Nice homage to that. And I'm just realizing now he won't be able to hold. I'm thinking of the Classics one that can have the shield and the axe. This one can't hold anything in that hand because it's open. So it's going to either be, you got to hold the sword or the axe. But luckily with the loop on the back, you can stick it in there and it's nice and secure on his back. Or let's see what the sword looks like in the back. Nice and secure again. And no problems whatsoever popping the weapons in there. You're not going to stress out, cause stress marks on the hands or on the weapons either. Super 7 left the axe out of their retro He-Man, and a lot of fans went, hey, where's the axe? Even if we're just sticking it in the back there, we want it there. It's part of his iconic look. And I just want to futz around with this guy and put him into, like, he really is the original He-Man with more posability now. He feels proportionately so much like that one, and he's so much smaller than the classic guy. Classics He-Man. So I'm digging being able to do all these poses. You can have him gripping the sword. I have the power! That's really cool. Let's take a look at his waist articulation. He doesn't have the classic spring waist. It is just an articulation point. And that's kind of another cool thing too. It's fine by me if it doesn't have the spring waist. This is another articulation point that we've never had, because on the original one you can't just hold him in this pose. He'll always spring back. But now, since the big thing is articulation, he can be at the ready like this. Hold the sword up, have the hand out in a readying position. Let's stick this shield back on. This is really cool. I like that. I like being able to twist him as part of different action poses. Let's move this guy over. He's never been really good at standing, but that's a cool extra little bonus articulation point. Let's see, we got ball joints in here. No more rubber bands that are going to break on you or leave black residue all over that area. That's great. The foot is it stops from hitting the fuzzy britches right here, but it's pretty good range. And is this Sparta? This is always one of the fun things with these figures. No, this is Eternia! Yes, love it. There's some stability for you. If you were wondering about those ankles, well, on this one at least, they're pretty good. Knee articulation, it's not Star Wars black, but it's really good. You can wind up for a field goal kick someone all the way to earth. And got a cut right here for extra articulation and stability for wide-legged action poses. Tons of articulation in the legs. Ankle joints are great. Nice and not super stiff. Sometimes they can be too stiff to the point of they feel like you're going to break it. But these are just sturdy enough. And with everything going on here, the knee bend, this boot cut, and the ankle pivot, you can actually give him like a proper, how does this go? Take these out. Give him a proper yoga pose of warrior, what is it, warrior 1, warrior 2, whichever one it is. That feels nice and sturdy right there. Little jiggle there, and he's standing pretty firm. And finally the hip range. He can get some pretty good splits going on, not all the way down, but it's pretty good. So, a couple of comparisons. I've had him beside this vintage He-Man, but now we can do a proper size comparison. Get rid of this stand for a second and just stand them up side by side so you can get a better look at them. The browns on the new guy are a little more brown. They're more reddish on the vintage one. The height is almost exactly the same. Looks like, well, on a different angle, this looks taller, but it's not. Just at eye level, I would say this guy is just a teeny tiny bit taller, but it's almost exact. They're going for the exact same scale. Take a look at the foot sizes. We can see that they're almost exactly the same size. I would say the size is closer with these two guys than it is with an O-Ring Joe and a modern 4-inch, basically G.I. Joe. So these new guys should easily fit in vintage vehicles and beasts. So I'll be taking a look at Battle Cat in a bit, and I will be sure when I do that comparison to try this guy on a vintage Battle Cat in that video. And one more size comparison with a Masters of the Universe Classics figure, and the Classics figures are definitely a little bigger, a little taller. Not that much more articulation though. They've taken all of the articulation, it seems. Well, almost all of it. There's no ab crunch in the new one. And they've just shrunk them down a little bit. Made it look a little bit more vintage retro. So this guy is actually a really great blend of this guy and this guy. You get the articulation from the Classics, but the look and the simplicity and the fun of the original 1982 He-Man. So that's a look at the new Retroplay He-Man appearing on this channel, courtesy of Mattel. Big thanks as always to the Patreon tribe. Thank you for your continued support and your participation on the Patreon page, as well as the watch parties and commentaries. Feel free to share the video with your fellow He-Man fans. Leave a comment below, and to join the tribe, hit subscribe. Nerdmas Day.